Welcome everyone to the Coffee Talk series, University Relations Edition. My name is Charles McKenzie, and I am chair for University Relations Atlanta. So, what our mission is for University Relations, NAMIC, is really focused on developing a pipeline of diverse talent, okay, in the communication industry, and we do that by collaborating with universities in metro area as well as surrounding, as well as throughout the United States. And we do that by providing mentorship, leadership development, internship opportunities, and we share valuable insights from our coffee talks to really assist with their career journey in the communications field. Okay. And today I have Pham, who is Director of University Relations for Cox Enterprises. Welcome, son. Thank you for joining me today.
Good day, Charles. Glad to be here with you.
Awesome, awesome. So let's go ahead and just kind of jump into some of the questions that we have. And so the first question I have for you, son, is really tell me about your background and your experience with university relations, and where did you find a purpose for helping students?
That's a great question. I do kind of get this all the time. So just a way of context, I've been with Cox Enterprise now really over about 6.5 years. Started my tenure here with Cox Communications, and recently in April of this year moved over to the enterprise. All right. And in my role, what our team is responsible for is think about early career hiring, where we go out and we set the strategy and execution for early career hiring around target schools, target universities, and it also would include community colleges, vocational programs for the hiring needs of the enterprise, which are across all three divisions, be it Cox Communications, Cox Automotive, or Cox Enterprise. All right. And then, but prior to joining Cox, if I kind of step back several steps, I really kind of started my journey in management consultant. And in that particular capacity, I did a lot of business strategy work, which also centered around people strategy. And so through the different various client engagements and projects, I got involved a lot around talent acquisition. What do we do in terms of finding the right people, structuring the organization effectively to really achieve business goals and objectives, right? And then when you kind of go down one click down below that around just the overall talent acquisition, there's a space or a lane called early career hiring where you work with students, right? And then there's a mantra that I've kind of worked by is that when you work in a project or when you engage with people is you want more for them than you want from them, right? And when you kind of think about how we work with students and what we get involved in, it really fits that mantra. It's like we want more for the students than they even know right now that we want from them currently, right? Because when we bring early career hires in, we're training, we're developing them really to be the next wave of talent, next wave of leaders for an organization. And so that's my why, because, in my career, I had a lot of mentors and coaches along the way that helped me. And we use that framework to then help students that we engage with.
Okay, awesome, awesome. Wow, that's a lot of experience, a lot of background, and then really understanding that why. I think that is so important, especially when you start to look at just early career development of students, because ultimately when you look at different companies and as they start to grow, right, it is very important to find the right people. Right.
Exactly, and then the NAMIC, what you guys are doing in terms of attracting diverse talent into the communications industry, you know, Cox is really aligned to that, where we're trying to attract early career talent, diverse early career talent into our organization as well too. So there's a lot of synergy around that. How we go about that might differentiate from company to company, but I think most companies when they look at early career, that's what they're focusing on.
Oh, that's exactly, and you hit on it, son. And as we start to look at just NAMIC, right, we're a diverse organization, right, and we know how important it is to make sure that we have diverse talent, right, diverse thought, diverse talent, women, men of color, and it's very important for all of us to be able to line on those goals.
Exactly. Exactly.
Awesome, awesome. So can you tell me about a little bit about the Cox UR program?
Yeah. So when you think at the highest level, what we do is we kind of set forth and we look at where's the business headed? What kind of talent do we need to kind of really start pipelining? And then more specifically, the early career talent, all right? So we kind of think about, well, what does good look like? What does best look like when we think about targeting schools, universities, vocational program, tech program, finding the right profiles and talent that we need, not only for today's roles and openings, but we project out where would the business needs talent in the next 3 years to 5 year kind of deal. And then there's always that kind of build, borrow, or buy model when it comes to talent acquisition.
Hmm.
With early career, we're looking to build. We bring them in, as an entry level hire. We start then grooming them, developing them, and growing them through the progression of their career here, right? So that's what we do. So when you think about some established programs like your summer internship program, your co-op program, that's really kind of supported through our organization and our university relations team, right? And then when you think about, campus to direct, where we go and recruit like rising seniors in their last year of school, and then start, recruiting them, engaging with them for full-time opportunities upon graduation to come join Cox in the various divisions that we have and various opportunities that we have. That's what our team does. But overarching, it's like, how do we go to market? How do we target the schools? And how do we engage with the students? It's what university relations, what our team is responsible for. And then, and we attract talent and we bring talent into the company.
Awesome, awesome. Wow, that's still that's hitting on a lot of that career development, right? There's a full process that it takes to really go through that, right? And so
Yeah.
you guys, how many? I guess is it split between like semesters and things like that? How do you guys look at some of those things as far as bringing those individual students in and kind of aligning with their schoolwork and all those different things? Can you kind of talk about that as well?
Yeah, great question there. I think most folks are very familiar with students-wise and even employers, the summer internship program, where this is the summer months between academic years, where a student's going to go work for an employer for that summer and then go back to school full-time the following fall, right? So we have a robust summer internship program in which we bring students upon that, right? And we work with them, we develop and we train them for the summer. There's also another program in which we get involved with, which we recruit a lot of early career talent for, is the co-op program or cooperative education program. All right.
Okay.
And then how that differentiates in is, from the summer internship program is that students in our co-op program work multiple semester, usually in a traditional alternating format. Right. So when you take a look at our co-op program here at Cox, it's very robust. We have students every semester, be it summer, fall, or spring. And then during the summer months, we kind of double up because we have summer interns that is in the same cohort with our co-op students as well too. Right. And so when you kind of take a look at, this segment of population, either summer internship or co-op, we recruit students across all functional area, be it very technical analytics to finance to HR to even sales role. And then our co-op program is also has grown and is robust enough to really accommodate for the interests and majors across all disciplines as well. And then we do bring on co-op students across all functional areas here at Cox, right? So those are two primary programs. And when you kind of think about how does the semester work, how do students work during that particular semester, and so forth. And then usually when you kind of look at the recruiting cycle, for heads up for students, it's like a lot of companies are either recruiting one semester or two semester ahead before they land that student and start that particular semester. So like, for example, for summer internship, a lot of companies engage in the recruiting efforts in the fall semester timeframe,
Hmm.
where they're up and running. And then it gets to the spring semester, you'll see a whole host of other schools really, and then I'm sorry, not schools, but other companies embarking in that summer internship recruiting cycle to land the students so they can work during that summer months with them.
Awesome. Wow. Awesome. So there's a when I kind of as you kind of look through, you kind of walk me through that. There's a lot of planning that goes into, right? Getting all the necessary students for whether it's summer or fall or even spring semester. So this is year long, right? All year round process that you guys are really engaging in building, the students, this pipeline of students, right? Through Cox internship, as well as through, getting those students to, hire, right? So kind of talk about when I think about university relations, when I think about them coming in as an intern or even a co-op, how does that transition to those students actually being hired by a hiring manager at
Yeah.
Cox?
Yeah. So great question. And I think you hit on a key point there. It's year-round engagement, right? So we want students to kind of think in that longevity kind of cycle also year-round. So engage with employers early on. You might not know exactly what you want to do. You start that exploration of what's out there, what I might be interested in, is start engaging and talking with employers, right? Now, do informational sessions with company representatives, do some research,
Mhm.
go and network, talk to a fellow student peer that might be working in a particular role or a particular company. Just ask them, how do you like it? What do you work on? All right.
Yeah.
And so to answer, how does a student really kind of go from the recruiting cycle to be hired? It's really that. It's like doing the due diligence, finding out what you're interested in, because it has to
Mhm.
be twofold. You kind of have to do some self evaluation and self awareness of directionally get started at says, I think I'd be interested in this. Then go
Mhm.
seek those opportunities, go engage with employers, recruiters, hiring managers, and then go through the interview process to land. For us here at Cox, we take a really holistic approach. Especially when you think about the co-op program, because students do multiple semesters with us. The sweet spot for that is around probably the sophomore year. And
Mm.
then at the sophomore year, they probably have a little bit fewer experiences or classwork that they can lean on. So we said, well, bring us your foundation. We'll develop on top of that. All right. And that same mantra goes with our summer internship program. So our managers kind of really reevaluate and re-level set their criteria and their expectation when it comes to early career. They kind of meet the student where they're at in their journey, and then they take a look at what foundation are you bringing to the table that we can build upon on. They're not looking for someone that has 5 to 7 years experience that knows a particular piece of code or software or a solution set that they're bringing to the table. They realize, hey, you're probably just a sophomore or junior. You're continuing to grow and matriculate, but we're going to build upon your foundation. So students are going to have to be able to articulate what have they done, what skills have they built for that foundation, and then demonstrate that to an employer, to a hiring manager, to be successful through the interviewing process, to then garner the offer and then come on board with a particular employer. So I hope that kind of makes sense in terms of like how
It
we
does.
engage, and then from an employer side, what do we look at in terms of best setting that student up for success as they are working through the interview process.
No, that does make sense. And when you kind of think about someone who has worked on the job for 20, 30 years or whatever it may be, those individuals have a foundation, right? And it's
Yes.
even though that, the students don't have, 20 plus years or 5 plus years or whatever it may be, but there's a foundation there, right? So during that foundation, they're working on different projects, whether it's hands-on projects, whether it's doing coding, and just them being able to describe exactly how that translates from right that school to doing that internship or that co-op program, and then that then translating to getting that full-time opportunity.
Yeah, and that's a great point. And that's where we kind of see where how students are successful. For those that we really hire and that come on board here at Cox, is they're able to kind of weave that story about that translation. You know, they're able to demonstrate that this is what I did, and it could be like they work part-time in a restaurant industry, in the service industry, but they're able to kind of show and demonstrate certain skills that they picked up that's transferable to the role in which they're interviewing for. They're able to translate some of the project work, technical work that they've done from a project, school group, participations and things like that, to skills that is building that foundation that is transferable to that role in which the manager is looking for someone to come in and work on the projects and deliverables in which they have. So that translation is key. And then
Mm.
kind of thinking about what does that story mean for the student or for the individual when you say, so, okay, I'm studying this because X, Y, and Z. Here are the skills that I built while I'm at school or my part-time work, and this is how it translates to the role in which I'm interested in. All right.
Definitely. No, that's awesome. As a manager, hiring manager, I think that is, we always talk about star formats and things like that. That is so important. Being able to communicate, right, about, here are the tests that I've done, whether it's in a star format or a non-star format, but being able to communicate those things in a very structured way that
Ex-
shows value, and then there's an end result. So I think
Yeah,
that is very important.
yeah, and it's a future indication of problem solving ability, because if you're building all the tools in your little tool chest here, is then the problem solving ability comes on top of that. It's like, what tools did you go to? when you're
Right.
working on a project. How do you then apply that particular tool, through a framework, through an execution of a deliverable and things like that, right?
Oh,
So that's how it really kind of, when you kind of think about success and what students are working on, is, yeah, it's like you're gaining all these tools in your tool chest here, and then the problem solving comes in because you're going to be utilizing all these components to be successful with the projects and deliverables that are going to be assigned to you, when you come on into the workforce.
awesome. No, that's I use so many tools. There's so much experience that I have throughout my journey that I have to reach back in my toolkit and utilize that tool.
That's right. And experienced professionals, the same thing. Is what are you doing to replenish your tool set, within your tool chest that you've got there? And what are you putting in? What are you continuing to sharpen? And what new ones do you need to put in as the demand of your job and as demand of the business, continues to grow?
No, those are all very important parts, son. Uh, so talk to me a little bit about, you know, I think about, just the pre-COVID era. How was university relations pre-COVID? And obviously we've spent, the last couple of years going through COVID, and now companies are starting to really get back to like that BAU process. So talk to me about, pre, during, and post. How did that impact university relations at Cox?
Yeah, yeah. It's kind of really interesting um, journey there when you kind of think about pre, during, and post the pandemic. Yeah. When we kind of look at the talent landscape through pre, during, post, is the mantra of war for talent,
Mm.
is out there, and we're still facing that. To be honest with you, when you kind of think about the war for talent, it's like, how do companies get ahead? How do they differentiate themselves? How do they get to market or get to these schools, target schools a little bit quicker? And then what kind of engagements are they developing and then executing with the students? All right. So during pre-pandemic, we saw a proliferations of companies just getting on campus, a lot of activities. And, we also get feedback from students, too much going on, too many activities, too many info sessions, too many networking sessions, and things like that. And so you kind of have to balance what you try to do in terms of an outreach, and then making sure that your outreach is meaningful, is impactful, that would draw the students to come and attend your events, and then that you're giving away, meaning you're giving away some sort of knowledge. Now, not necessarily swags, but you value their time and that you're teaching them something at the same time, and they come and engage with you. All right. And then with the pandemic, we saw that everything went to a virtual environment where
Hmm.
everything was done virtual. And then now we hear feedback from the students during the pandemic. It's like, gosh, I wish we had more in-person type engagements. And then during the pandemic, we did bring on students, but they work virtually. So it's hard to kind of ascertain a company's culture, its ebb and flow, meeting folks for the first time, because students don't have that kind of corporate experience yet. So a lot of times it's really beneficial to be on site and working with a team and having that support structure from a team, right? Now that we're coming out of the pandemic, with certain ebbs and flows of the pandemic, what we would coin the post cycle here is we are kind of looking at where we were from the pre and post and getting into
Hmm.
a hybrid type situation. We
Yeah.
don't rubber band back to where it was the pre-pandemic. Technology has changed, advancements in terms of the capabilities of Team, Zoom, and all these virtual collaboration tools have really matured within a short horizon. And then so we're looking at, leveraging technology where it makes sense in terms of the outreach, giving us a broader outreach than it was beforehand. And then also, but then realizing the needs of the students and the needs of the business, that there has to be a relationship that gets built. And
Yeah.
sometimes that is best built in some of the face-to-face on campus type interaction.
Oh, that's awesome. That is a great horizon view of just bringing those two worlds together, right? Pre and during, and saying, "Hey guys, we can't revert back to where we were, right? Pre. We have to bring a hybrid approach and just make sure that, depending on the situation, like really allowing us to analyze it more and be a lot more intentional about just that engagement process and understanding, depending on the events that we're putting on, this is the engagement that is needed for that particular event. And this is how we best reach out to the students and make sure that they're really a part of this process. And I remember, you know, there probably were things that, it's all about swag, but no, it's about what is the best interest of the students. Everyone loves swag, right? So,
Exactly.
but it's about really engaging them, making sure that they're getting and they're benefiting from whatever that event was, and making sure that they actually see traction, kind of going from, hey, this is my first time meeting someone, but wow, you know, they're really wanting to get me involved and get us through this process. So I think that's really an important part, son, that you mentioned.
Really is. When you kind of think about Cox, we're a family-owned business, right? And then one of our mantra or our foundations, we're a very relationship-based organization. People matter. For us, people matter, be it our employees, be it our customers or clients, right? And so, being such a relationship DNA-ish type organization, that's how we kind of experience it, and that's how we want to kind of demonstrate it when we're out at campuses with students. And like I said, that hybrid kind of model will give you those opportunities and flexibility to be able to build relationship and extend the relationship when you
Oh
need
yeah,
to.
yeah. I think that's the culture is so important. Whether it's at Cox, Comcast, Time Warner, all of our communication companies that are in Atlanta, being able to have that culture, right, experience that culture, and having the NAMIC hat on, but also working at Cox, you know, I experience the culture, right,
Yep.
daily when I go into the office. So I just know how important that is. And with students that have never been to the campus and things like that, right, they haven't yet experienced that culture.
Yep,
Right. So I think,
exactly. Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
and students need that because they're at a point where companies are telling them about the company culture, but then students gonna says, "Well, show me, demonstrate to me, show me, your ID&E initiatives, show me what you're doing around corporate social responsibilities. Where are you getting involved? Because it's a area of great interest and passion for students, right? For especially early careers, and then so they're asking employers, you're telling me this, but you have to demonstrate and show me that. All right. And then so, we at Cox have to find creative ways to, if we can't do it from a in-person deal, is how can we demonstrate that from a virtual, or what other ways can we demonstrate our culture, as well?
oh yeah, that's wow, that's just so important. I think all these companies, right? If they have a bad culture, even they come back, during pandemic, or, once pandemic, we're trying to get to BAU. And now, we're starting to look at the culture, right? It was so important to have a great culture pre-COVID, but it's critical even more to have an even better culture now.
Yep, exactly. And I empathize with our senior leaders because they're wrestling with this new hybrid model. It's like, how do you, promote it, be successful and effective with it, but at the same time, ensure that the DNA and the culture of the organization still thrive, in this hybrid structure.
Definitely. No, wow. That's I think that is so important right now. I think all companies are challenging or being challenged with this right now.
Exactly.
So that
Exactly.
is because, how do we, you don't want to force people to go back to, the office. So how do we play in this hybrid approach? But then also, how do we just keep people engaged? So I think that is very important. One of the last questions that I have, Son, is when you think about Cox, is how does Cox attract the top talent on the market?
That's a great question. Uh, I I think what we do uniquely is we show up as who we are, either on campus as we would show up as who we are in the office. We're very authentic. And then we talk about that relationship component is for us to attract top talent is that of course we hire finance people, technical people, analytics, whatever, just like other companies do. But to be able to demonstrate who we are from a relationship perspective, that we're taking time to invest in the engagement and talking with students and working with students, is I think that's, if we're consistent with our messaging and we're doing that with consistently with the students, is then we start, kind of demonstrating to them, this is Cox, this is who we are. The roles, the job is very meaningful because we give students tangible projects and deliverables when they come on here work with us. Either it's an intern, co-op, and things like that. So we will challenge them, we will grow them. And and then one of the edict here is that, you know, your employees as your most valuable resources. So we really do kind of treat our interns and co-ops the same way as of any full-time employees, right?
So
And so it's that consistency of that messaging, demonstrating to them who we are, and then giving them a flavor and visibility to that is how we track the talent here. All right. And then there's a lot of great companies out there. Don't get me wrong, a lot of great companies out there with a lot of brand recognition and and a big portfolio of opportunities that they can offer. Cox is no different than that. It's just that we're a little bit smaller in scale. We are a family-owned business, and we thrive on that. We're very proud of that tradition. And then there's few organizations out there that can really say they are still a family-owned business. Right. And then when you kind of really think about it, with our leadership team and our employees here, we live that principle. We live that mantra. We are a family-owned business, and we kind of treat everyone like family.
yep, no, that's very important. One thing that you mentioned is just the exposure. And so when I think about that, having a little bit of insight into you guys' process, I really like the showcase at the end of the year, right? And so during that showcase, I remember, pre-COVID is going into, that conference room and everybody having their showcase of the projects that they worked on. And, I've also attended one virtual and still being able to see just the visibility and having, all the way up to SVPs, all the way up to the president of the company going and being able to walk and ask those students questions about just, hey, tell me about your project. And being able to see the confidence of those students communicate exactly what they've been working on for their rotation. I think that is a confidence builder. I think that talks about culture. And, it's not like we're pulling teeth to try to get the SVPs there. They're wanting to come there and see exactly what are all the awesome projects, because there may be a project that gets fast and move forward and actually is something that goes in production. So I just think that that is something that is so important when you talk about providing that visibility.
Yep, and you're spot on there. And it really does take that planning up front because we work with our hiring leaders to set the right expectation and says, hey, before you even start recruiting for this particular student, is what profile are you looking for? What projects do you think that you'll have that you would want your student to work on? And the showcase is the best way to kind of demonstrate, the proof in the pudding that it's tangible work. It drives business impact across the board. And I think that's why everyone that kind of attendees that participate, they're just amazed when they walk away and they said, I can't believe our students or early career hires are working on these projects. And we've seen some proof of concept that these students work on that translate, to your point, getting investment to forward that project forward,
Yeah.
saving the organization millions of dollars,
Wow.
or speed to market where revenue uplift is a little bit quicker than what they had originally, budgeted out in their business case and things like that. Right.
Wow.
Yeah. So,
That that's
so it's great. It's great.
that is awesome. Awesome, son. So my last two questions for you. Definitely appreciate your time. And so my last question is, what is the most critical effort that you are currently working on to really change the trajectory of the UR program at Cox?
Yeah, great question. So earlier this year, back in April, our team we transferred into Cox Enterprise, right? And so with that transformation, what we're doing from an early career perspective, from a university relations perspective, is stepping back and thinking about how do we show up as a one Cox, at Target Schools University? How do we show up as a one Cox to the students? We have three distinct areas like Cox Communications, Cox Automotive, and Cox Enterprise, but yet we're still part of the Cox family. And it's now stepping back, it's like, well, how do we execute that and how do we show up there? And how are we able to demonstrate and showcase the different opportunities across those different divisions? Yeah. And so that's what we're working on right now. We've got a great plan in place. We've got a great team that's working on that and looking at all the different design elements of what do we need to be successful, and then also to be able to really kind of demonstrate a one Cox look and feel as we engage and as we work with students, from through our recruiting efforts.
Awesome. Oh wow, showing up as one. That's very important. Okay. My last question to you is is when you kind of think about everything that we've talked about What would be one advice you would actually give a student to really help them with a career journey? Because you know, of course, they come in. I think you mentioned, being a sophomore, kind of they're already kind of have that foundation, and you guys just kind of help with that trajectory. What would be one advice you could give them to really help them with their career journey?
Yeah, yeah. It's always a tough question to kind of answer, but I think the one advice I would give it is kind of a two-parter. And the two-part would be this: is one, be flexible, and then
Mhm.
two, be engaged, be purposely engaged. Right. To your point about students particularly through they'll learn more as they get into their degrees, they'll learn more as they get into their classes, their projects and things like that, is be flexible because your interest and your passion might change as you kind of work through your academics. All right.
Yeah.
Do the due diligence, pick up the internship, pick up the co-op projects to kind of really says, hey, is this what I want to do? Give yourself a little grace if you do decide to change your mind and switch majors or go in a different little area of your major or your discipline, right? But in order to really kind of make those course correction is you got to get out and got to engage.
Yeah.
Got to get the data points. You got to learn and talk with people. You got to kind of experience the work of what you think it is. Get in the day of a life, feel for that. Yeah. And that's why the purpose of that engagement is really important. Be it the work that you're delivering on, the projects that you're working on, or working through the recruiting cycle and engaging with recruiters, engaging with company representatives, and then taking the time to do the coffee chats, showing up for an info session just to learn more. All right. And so that's what I kind of think about, setting that foundation for success because it's
Yeah.
going to prove you well here while you're in school in early career. But you think about, 3 to 5 years post graduation, we would get the same advice to a young professional in their career trajectory. Be flexible, being engaged, all right? And then, as you kind of move through your career tenure and you're at the leadership level, is they're doing the same thing, but they're kind of flipping it backwards where they're being engaged and flexible and purposeful with their organization. All
Yeah.
right. So that model kind of proves itself through the career trajectory. But right now it's just like, adapting that model to where the student's at and her or his, trajectory.
Awesome. Wow, son, that is so important. Being flexible. We have to, for myself and even you, right? We have to be so flexible because sometimes things change, right? Working on different projects and things like that. So, wow, that is so important. And I just want to thank you again. I appreciate your time. Thank you for coming on here and just really talking about some of the most important topics to UR relations. And so, again, I just want to thank you for your time and I appreciate you. And that will conclude our first coffee talk session. So, thank you.
Thank you, Charles. It's a pleasure being with you today.
Pleasure. Same here. Have a good day.